Hey everyone, so I wanted to make this quick video on how to charge your Jeep Wrangler 4xe. It's a pretty simple process, but for those who don't know or those who are thinking about getting one, it's a key component to know. So I just want to go over briefly what's in the car that's of note to use, and then we'll get to the charging station and I'll talk a little bit about the options there. So this is the dashboard screen. On the top right, you have the current charge of the battery. So as you can see, mine is at 27%. When you look down to the mileage right below it, you'll see two numbers, one at the top, one at the bottom. Actually, three numbers, and that one in the middle. The one on the top is the same color as the battery, and that's how many miles you'll get on just the battery or the hybrid mode until you're at 0%. The bottom number is the amount of mileage you'll get on the gas alone. And the middle number is the combined total mileage of both. As you can see on the bottom left, there is two sections on the left side of the total mileage of the vehicle. On the far left, you have the battery recharging icon, which I'll go into in a moment. And to the right of that, below whatever the gear is, as you can see, if I put this into 4-wheel, that comes up above it. I'm on 2-wheel now, and that's gonna stay consistent on the bottom depending on what mode we're at. So as you can see, I'm on hybrid mode. That relates to this section here, which on the left you see the gas tank, the button to open the gas tank, and then you have the three options. So right now, as I mentioned, I'm on hybrid mode on the far left, but you also have electric mode, which will just use the electric of the vehicle, and then on the right you have e-save, which will just use the gas in the vehicle. And as you can see, when you change them, it will tell you exactly what mode you're in and what that does. Coming over here, we have the battery recharge button. Now you could turn this on and off, but I leave it on permanently because in my opinion, there's really no reason to have this off. So on the right side there, you'll see the horsepower you're using. That will go up as you're accelerating, but you'll notice, and it's going to be hard for me to show this without driving, and I really don't want to be unsafe, but you have to imagine that once you're going down a hill, you can take your foot off the accelerator, right? And it will continue to go at that speed. And that arrow, that dial marker right here, if I can show that, will drop into this charging area. So even if you're just charging, even if you find this dropping into here and you're coasting with that right in this area, you'll be able to charge it significantly. If it drops, it usually won't drop down into here unless you're, sorry for that focusing, unless you're really, going fast, and then you go on a hill and you take your foot off the accelerator and it will swoop down there. But you only get certain level of charge for only a certain amount of time, very short in here. You'll find that this dial, when you're on hills, can really hover in this area, and that's prime for charging. So your Jeep Wrangler 4xe has a regenerative braking system, which allows it to charge the battery, but you're going to need that max regeneration button on to really see a significant increase in battery charge if you're using the driving. It will do it by itself. One other thing I want to mention about the max generation button that we saw on the center console that helps to recharge the battery, when that's on, it will allow the Jeep to brake on its own when you take your foot off the accelerator pedal. So when you take your foot off the accelerator pedal, the Jeep will begin to stop on its own, and that will be it using the charging, as we saw on the front dash, that dial, to charge the Jeep. as best it can based on the speed you're going, and etc., etc. So you will notice the difference when that button is pressed. The vehicle will begin to stop itself. It won't be stopping short, but it is a bit of a difference compared to a normal vehicle that it will be a significant enough difference to notice. But when that button's off, it will treat you taking your foot off the accelerator pedal just as any other car would. So if you don't like having that stoppage when you take your foot off the pedal, it will still regenerate the battery, but as far as I can tell, it's really not that significant, and that button on really makes a significant difference. For those of you who camp, I use my Jeep, mostly the battery, when I'm on the road on long road trips with the electric mode on when I'm camping. So it defeats the purpose to have the battery being used when you're on long road trips on the road, because you're only going to get 22 miles for 100% battery. It's literally for commutes for people and local driving where you have access to charge points. Now on the road, I seek them out and I charge my battery as I go, because I use the battery to camp and to sleep in the car at night. And so when I'm using the car, I keep it on e-save mode. So this allows me to just use the gas and to save my battery. And then when I find a campsite, or I sleep in a Walmart parking lot or Cracker Barrel parking lot or something off the grid, I'm able to hit that electric button, so that now is just using the 100% battery life, and I can heat the car, you know, in the winter, or cool it down with the AC in the summer. And this allows me some flexibility so that I don't have to have the car running on gas while I'm sleeping. And it really runs for most of the night. I think if you were to run the whole battery from 100% camping at night, it will probably run out at the 6th or 7th hour. That's what you're going to roughly get. And so at that point, it will turn off and it will use the gas. But that's a significant amount of time to be able to sleep comfortably. I know for me, as I've run the car and then I find a spot to sleep in, my car is kind of warm, and so I kind of just go through the first few hours without it. I tend to wake up in the middle of the night, and so while this isn't ideal, it for me works because I can wake up, turn the battery on, turn the car on, turn it on to electric mode, and then I'm good to go for the rest of the night if I need to be cool or warm, depending on the temperature out. At this point, I have 23% battery life left. I'm just gonna go run that out now, drive around, and then we're gonna go to a charge point. But before I do, a little bit of word on that. There are plenty of charge stations. I use charge points because I prefer the way they're laid out on Apple Maps. They're very easy to find. So are Blinks, but the thing with Blink is that although they are in hospital parking lots and those are usable, a lot of Blink charge stations are private residents, private businesses, a lot of times car dealerships. And I had trouble finding Blinks that were easily accessible. Now, Blink also tends to have a lot more options in terms of plug type. So if you know what plug type you're using, you're going to want to kind of lean towards those. And I know charge points, if there's a charge point on a map that I search and I find one nearby, it's going to have my charging plug, which is the J1772, which I will show a picture right here of that plug. That's the plug for the Jeep Wrangler 4xEs. You get Tesla plugs, which are different. There's other types of connectors. In fact, there's quite a few connectors that I won't mention all of them here because you're probably here for the 4xe Jeep Wrangler. But if you'd like to take a look at those, definitely do some research on that, as there's plenty of different plugs. And Tesla stations, charge stations, will not have the J1772. That is a special Tesla plug. So those stations are out. So back to what I mentioned about Blink. Blink will have a lot of different ones. And so when you're searching for your charge station, you're going to want to make sure that you click on it and you find exactly what plugs are there, because it will depend on the different station. Now, the J1772 is a pretty standard plug, and I believe it's the most widely used one on hybrid vehicles. Don't quote me on that, but this one seems to be more present than not. So there's two levels and two ways to charge your Jeep 4xe. There's level 1, which is 120 volts, and level 2, which is 240 volts. Level 1 is going to be something that you use at your home residence or in a station you set up for yourself. You can use it in a wall outlet, and I'll show that next. The level 2 are going to be the ones you find on the road, or again, if you have something installed into your residence or your garage, that will work. Now, the difference is quite significant. With level 1 charging at 120 volts, it's gonna take about 12 hours to charge from 0 to 100. With level 2 at 240 volts, even though it's only double the voltage, it's gonna charge your vehicle from 0 to 100 in approximately 2 hours. I've noticed it's like 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's quite a significant difference. And so it's definitely worth considering getting a level 2 charging post installed into your residence and your garage if that's something that you'll use based on you commuting, if that's what you're using the battery for and the vehicle for. But for me, going on the road, that's not really an option. I don't really need to have that at home. I need to have it on the road. And so luckily all the charging stations are level 2. So let me show you the charging plug that comes with the vehicle. This is a level 1 charging plug that you can use in any wall outlet. Okay, so this is the charging unit, the level 1 120 volt charging unit that comes with your 4xe. As you can see, it has the Jeep logo. It has the J1772 plug type. So with these 3 indicator lights, this top one will be the one you most likely and most often will hopefully see is green. This means it's charging. This middle light is actually the red light, and when that's on, it means that there is a problem with the charging unit, i.e. this plug here. And then this third light would be the yellow light, and as you can see, this would be a problem with the station or the outlet that you're using. So depending on which light lights up, you can kind of figure out the problem, but for the most part, you'll see this light light up as green. Okay, so we are at the charge point station, and I am very close to 0%. I'm kind of just going to wait that out. While I do, what you're going to need to do is, and what I would advise is, when you get your vehicle, and really with any electric vehicle, you're going to want to go out and try the different charge stations. So although I mentioned and I'm focusing on ChargePoint here, there are a couple others. I went and tried Blink, as I mentioned, and it just wasn't in the locations I needed. And so different charge stations will have different characteristics to what type of charge points they have, what type of plug types, and all that kind of stuff that will depend on your region and where you're at. And so that's why I would say, if you get your vehicle, it's best to determine which one you're going to want to go with more permanently after you try a few and see what's in your area. Maybe go on a trip that you would be able to see how on your travels it works for you and the plug type if you don't have a Jeep. But this is for Jeep 4xe. So for me, charge points were the best. So I'm going to stick to that. But regardless of which charge station you want to go with, you're going to need to sign up through their app and make a profile, and I believe put down a credit card or a debit card so that you can get the money added as you go. So my debit card is attached to my ChargePoint account, but you're going to need to go on the apps and you're going to need to make an account and you're going to need to put your card down. The great news is charging the vehicle is very inexpensive. So although you only get 20 to 22 miles on the full percentage, if you're using it for camping like me, you're going to use that battery for quite a lot, and it will work for you over time for sleeping and all that stuff. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with this. I believe to charge the whole thing from 0 to 100, which is why I want this to happen so I can show you at the end, but I believe it's like only $1.75 for the whole battery to charge over the course of the 2 hours. So that's nothing compared to if you consider gas prices and all that stuff. And yes, it's a hybrid, so you will be dealing with that as well. But hopefully the battery will help you manage that. When you get your account, it will allow you to download the card to your wallet if you have an iPhone. I'm not familiar with Android, so I'm sure it does a similar thing. But it will give you that card in your wallet that I will show you now as we charge the vehicle. Okay, so here we are at the charge point station. So before we do that, unlike the gas, the electric battery is all controlled outside. And so this is the panel that you work with. It has a little bit of a push tab thing, as you can see right there, that locks it into place. It shows you what the alerts are about on the inside panel. And this is the cap that you take out, which exposes the charging outlet. So as you can tell, you have the ChargePoint card in your wallet. You click it, it brings it up, and you hold this near the reader, and the system will do what it needs to do. It's pretty straightforward, but let's go and plug our Jeep in. So I just scanned my card, and now it's authorizing the station for me. You can now use either one of these plugs if they're both there. If not, then the one that's there. But all you're going to do is take that out and fit it right into the slot. The station will show you that it is charging, and you're good to go. So on your dash in the vehicle, you'll get a little bit of a notice, and that won't stay there for much longer. I know it says 2 hours and 20 minutes right now, but that goes down quite quickly to a total of about 2 hours and 10 minutes, 15 minutes, as I mentioned. So we're charging from one to 100, but this will give you a good indication, and that green light means that you're charging correctly and that it's all good to go. One other thing I just want to mention real quick before we let this go and then I check back in when it's done is the one question I had, or concern I had, was about rainy weather, wet weather. And what's great about the plugs, all the EV car plugs, and including the J1772, is that they have that cap on it, and it's enclosed by that circle part of the plug that keeps it from going with the water going within. So I've actually come to this station, in fact, when it was pouring rain, and was able to plug the Jeep in and no water got in. The plugs are recessed into the plug. It looks like you got those main sections, but that's actually encasing to avoid any short circuiting or any kind of water damage that would get into it. And it's really designed nicely to avoid that. So although you don't want to be reckless and you don't want to hold the plug up in the air so that the water gets into it, I mean, obviously use common sense, but for the most part, any motion of just taking it out, putting it into your vehicle, you're not going to have to worry about the rain damage. It's meant for that. I mean, cars go in the rain, so hopefully they would have accounted for that, and they have. Okay, so it's been 2 hours now, so it's fully charged. Plug this back in, and that's the total cost.